Why does Tony Greer need to meet Bogumil Baranowski? You're watching Just Press Record. Now, does Mr. Patient, Infinite Time Horizon himself, Bogumil, become a day trader? Or does ADHD 2-minute Tony become a long-term investor and thinker? You're going to have to watch to find out. But what I can tell you is we talk about community, we talk about psychology, and we talk about turning anything into a relatable experience, the value of packaging up ideas, using those ideas to find your people, and then all the good parts of life that spring up around it. What a beautiful conversation. I'm so excited. I actually got to capture these two people meeting. Jack Forehand, let's roll some clips.
The number one fear, the number one problem that literally everyone has is figuring out when to part with something.
Yeah.
And how they're going to feel once they're down to no position.
And I have a dilemma because if I sell it just because too many people like it and it gets overheated, I don't have a good practice when to go back. I think it's very hard to go back.
I'm so transactional, Bogey, perhaps to a fault, and I understand that, but it's always been the way that I've either thrived or survived.
Yeah.
And so I'm okay with that, living with those conditions. But I think about people's psychology, and because I'm so wired so differently, I can't understand it. And I'm like, why not? And he's like, well, because I won't be able to buy it back. And I'm like, was the market going to close after you sell it? I don't understand. The market's still open. You can buy it back 5 seconds later. What kind of emotional support do you need to help to buy the goddamn offer is going to be on the screen tomorrow morning? What's the matter?
I think there's 1,000 ways to make money, and Matt knows that I've had 200 guests on Talking Billions, and if anything I learned through the process is that there are more ways to make money than I could have ever imagined. Yeah. and I'm not here to judge and say, this is, if you find a way that works for you, I think that's at the end of the day what I tell people. If you found a way that allows you to accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish, do that.
Even though I have short time horizons, we both have a level of patience and respect for time. I thought that was a very interesting thread that just organically came out.
You're watching Just Press Record right here on Cultish Creative YouTube, the show where I take two strangers from my network of misfits, miscreants, and mysteriously curious people that I am so convinced they should meet. I send them a blind calendar invite. They pop in, no clue who the other is, and we just press record. So don't forget, Just Press Record, officially brought to you by Panoptica and Epsilon Theory. Check them out on the interwebs. And without further ado, who are these guests that I thought just had to meet? Let me use this theme. Guess which job is the real one, maybe? So, Bogey B's Killer Kielbasa Rings. It's a kielbasa shop, but it's also a front for a hitman. At least that's the way I'm pitching the Netflix series. Because let's face it, he's so cool that you can kind of see it, right? Like, he might be a killer when you hear him talk. Or, other option, BB Kulinowski. It's a late night, Chicago suburbs. You turn on the local radio. You're way to the left of the dial. It's kind of a ladies' man style, but it's more just cool. Reliably, once a month, he's the guy who plays Coltrane and Hartman, front to back, no skips. You want to know him hanging out in your car at 4 o'clock in the morning, going to and from work? Or is he the host of Talking Billions, the Infinitas Capital founder, and can I get a kielbasa ring named the Infinitas ring somewhere smoked? I'm thinking jalapeno cheddar filling optional. I'm just saying I could see it. Sold in between two Chet Baker cuts. It's the one and only Bogumil Baranowski. Welcome to Just Press Record, Bogumil.
Speechless. I have nothing to say.
Well, we're going to find a lot for you to say because this guest I got to introduce you to, who could it be? Is it Tony G's Pizza and Wings? Officially and absolutely voted best pizza and wings in the world, at least according to the sign over the front door. Hand painted, debatably by teenagers. Fact check this with a crude Italian gesture. Or maybe it's the lead guitarist in Appetite for Illusion. It's a Long Island Guns N' Roses cover band. Instead of Slash, he goes by Schmear. No, I'm bugging. I'm bugging. all the way from Massapequa. It's the owner and purveyor of TG Macro, its written version, The Navigator, which is not, contrary to popular belief, an alternate Long Island ferry, despite that regular confusion. And of course, host of shows like Macro Dirt with our friend Jared Dillian. It's Tony Greer, but that only means I have to tee him off right with a, here's Tony.
Yeah, that's why you are Matt Ziegler. Holy smokes, you are good.
Wow. That was great.
All right. You guys are going to guess by the end why I thought you had to meet. I was telling Bogumil before you popped into the room here, Tony, that if we weren't doing this and capturing it here, I was already certain I introduced you, number one. But then number two, I was like, I would want to be in this conversation and we'd be having this privately. So instead, I'm just gonna put this out here. So you guys officially just like haven't crossed paths at all? You're kind of in two different worlds, but you're adjacent.
I don't think so. But Matt has many gifts, and I have to say that one gift that you have is bringing people together. And there are so many people in my life today that are good friends, and it's all because of you. So I want to say thank you. And I'm sure I'm looking at a new friend just now, right here, a pizza chef.
Yeah,
A pizza
exactly.
chef.
You go by Bogey, is it?
It is bogey sometimes. It's
do we
Bogumil
go
for
by?
work, but it can be
Bogumil?
bogey for this show. Sure, it can be
No,
bogey.
what do your friends call you? What's your nickname? My friends call me
Bogey.
TT, so call me that.
Bogey is great. Yeah.
Bogey, I got it.
We
Very
got
cool.
Bogey,
Where are you born and raised,
TG.
Bogey?
I was born in Poland, and then I went to schools around Europe, and I came to New York because of Peter Lynch's book One Up on Wall Street, and the rest is history that I'm sure we'll talk about. What about you?
Very cool. As Matt referred to, I grew up on Long Island and went to Cornell University, worked on the street for 25 years in varying capacities, and then shoved off on my own because I got tired of working. I got tired of splitting my paycheck with people. So I wound up going out on my own via a note that I write that I've been writing about markets kind of for a couple of decades, and I kind of just formalized that as my first product. And so that's kind of how I got to where I am via, obviously a long run on the street with a lot of ups and downs, but mostly great moments. And it's kind of how I look at it as how I forged myself as an adult trader and investor, if that's
I love
fair.
that. Yeah, amazing.
All right, we're starting to circle it a little bit. Have you ever been, TG, you ever been to Poland?
No, and I'd love to go. I've actually touched down in a number of countries in Europe, but Poland, unfortunately, is not one of them. I was a slave to, I lived in Zurich for 6 months when I worked for UBS, and I had a best friend that lived in Paris. Like literally one of my best friends that lived in Paris at the time. So either I would go to Paris, we'd meet in Amsterdam, we'd meet in London, and so some of the more, I don't know, exotic trips got left out, I suppose.
It's nice to think that Poland is exotic.
I knew you'd like I threw you a bone. I threw you a bone there.
Yeah, it was more exotic when I was born. It's less and less exotic now. I feel like it looks like just any other European city for better or worse. Maybe that's better. It's finally
How exotic was it when you were born? Give Tony a taste of young Bogumil's Polish upbringing.
Matt loves this story.
I love this story.
Oh, let's hear it.
Yeah, this is so
I was
good.
born in 1980, so I got to see the last decade of a truly failed political and economic system. So anybody that tells me that socialism or communism works, it will not have an easy conversation with me, including some of my professors that tried to fail me in Paris when I left Poland, and they were trying to explain me that they could do communism better. We just didn't know how. But anyways, so it was a very different country, frozen in time, and kind of one color palette, shades of gray, not the cool shades of gray, and changed dramatically when I turned 10. The country opened up, so I saw a massive influx of people, ideas, businesses, investments, and it was cool to see as a kid that was just curious about the world.
I can imagine, man. That's an unbelievable personal history. I mean, coming from, and we were not going to talk about my personal history because there's no political angle or sort of, historic lesson that I lived through. I guess maybe other than 9/11, but like that's really, that's an interesting way to get brought into your teens and your 20s with your country opening up like that. Like that's really majestic. That's quite something. What led you to the Wall Street and trading? What was the first?
Well, I was curious about business, economics, politics history. So I went to a business school in Poland, but I felt like I'm not finding it, whatever it was. So yeah, I was taking all those courses, taking accounting, but I couldn't really see, you can become a consultant, you can become an accountant. I couldn't really see where I'm taking it. And some of my friends were going into politics, so I dabbled in that area. I was actually a volunteer to a politician in Poland in my early 20s and spent a lot of time running around the local Congress, the parliament. And I liked it. I was intrigued. But then I picked up a book, One Up on Wall Street, when I was an exchange student in Brussels. And that book, simple idea, stocks are small pieces of businesses, just blew my mind. And I couldn't look at the stock market again. Was there a moment for you when you discovered investing in that way?
Yeah, as I explained to Matthew, it was kind of a genetic osmosis. My father was an over-the-counter trader for Dean Witter for 30 years. So my entire life as a teen and 20-something and into my 30s even, he was a trader. And so trading was dinner conversation. Bids and offers were something I understood at a very young age. And I guess the best part that I picked up from him was how happy he was doing it. And he was a competitor as well as a guy that didn't have a formal college education. And so as a competitor and an athlete in my life, I kind of noticed that was a great overlay for a career, for a guy that wanted to be, involved in some action during the day and think with some moving parts and, some yelling and screaming. And, it kind of felt like it would be a good natural segue. And then he helped me, guided me, saying, when you get out of school, we're going to get you a job on a trading desk. We don't know where yet, but we're going to get you a job on a desk. And people were like, you're going to have to try back office. You're going to have to do this. And my dad was like, we'll find, it's all who that's just it was his type of mentality. And so then once I literally, like, one of my first experiences stepping onto a desk was listening to the Quantum Fund offer pound sterling at 178.78 when the Bank of England was 178.80 bid. And that was one of the things I was listening to, like the first paradox that drove you to think about markets on your own. Like you don't even know what you don't understand yet. Like that sea is so massive, but you're like, wait a minute. The bid is bigger than the offer here. Do I have this correct? And the bid will pay more for the pound sterling than the seller is? Really? And then you figured out what was going on eventually after understanding. And that was one of the things that caught me like that, and then over the next several months, sterling collapsed and the whole thing. And you were like, wow, that was powerful. So I guess that was one of the early things. I was at Sumitomo Bank when that happened.
Incredible. So for the benefit of the audience, you're talking about George Soros breaking.
Yep. Yeah.
Breaking the setup. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when, you learn that was kind of around the birth of the hedge fund as an animal. A year later, Steve Cohen founded SAC Capital, and the whole industry was off and running, right into what I consider to have been around a peak, I guess, probably sometime around 2015 or so, when a friend of mine launched with $3 billion. A macro hedge fund, and you were like, wow, that's a top ticky, And I think it still may be, but jury's out. After that, everybody's fees got crushed, and it's much different business now.
So obviously we have this, you're figuring this out in real time. Old Bogey here is way more on the long-term investor side. Old TG here is way more on the short-term trader side. And I'm kind of fascinated by this. And I'm thinking about it. I've just thought of it right now, and I might get the ticker wrong on this. Yeah. But Bogumil's used to thinking about like stocks as a piece of a business. Tony thinks of them that way, but in like through an entirely different lens. I'm remembering a story you told me, Tony, about it was like your dad came home when, was it Microsoft got assigned to him?
Yeah, 1984.
So just tee this whole story up from the way that this is explained and like hearing a ticker frame this way to you, because I need Bogumil to react to this.
All right, so I'll try to give you the quick and dirty version. And so my dad's coming home from work. He's going for a run, and he's plopping down at the dinner table where mom is serving an unbelievably cooked meal. Like, this is all going down by 7 o'clock at night. And dad just starts rambling every single night, So, but this guy calls me up, Buzzy calls me up. He's got this to do. He's got stock to buy. Telling stories like that. And so I'm starting to understand a little bit about what's going on. He's in the stock market. I've got that down, and he's trading stocks. I kind of know what one of those is. And I just remember when he came home and he was like, yeah, I got this new stock on my pad today. People think it's a big deal. He's like, ironically, it's called Microsoft. You know what I mean? And he's like, it doesn't. And I was like, well, me and my mom were both like, what kind of company? What is it? And he was like, I have no idea. Literally no idea. You know what I mean? And he was happy to kind of leave it like that. I guess we finally pinned him down to him saying like it's technology. You know what I mean? But that was where his area of expertise was. His area of expertise was when the customer called up to buy some, he knew that he could sell them some at a good price, make money, get out of the way, go with the flow, the whole thing. So that's what that experience was like. And then it wasn't until like, over the years that you were like, son of a bitch, the thing that he was talking about was like the biggest stock in the stock market eventually, So I'll never forget that though. I'll never forget that. It was pretty cool.
As I'm listening to you.
What's that?
I'm thinking of a conversation that Matt and I had with Robert Hackstrom, Warren Buffett Way, and Chris Mayer a few weeks ago. We host this monthly 100-Year Thinker conversation with the two legends, and I proposed a topic that we had last time, which I call the perfect stock, but I know now that I should have been more specific about it because both Robert and Chris told me you mean a perfect business. And here I think is the difference in what you're describing, perfect stock and perfect business. And I'm actually sketching an essay I want to write about that topic more. If you want to own something, do you want to own a perfect business or a perfect stock? And I think a lot of investors say, I want to own a perfect business. But there are a lot of really good businesses that have really bad stocks to hold. The stocks go up and down, they miss, they overreact. They're very hard to hold. So I think what you're trying to say, you would like to have a perfect stock that happens to have a perfect business. Like the business is great, it has all the qualities you're looking for. But the stock trades in a way that you don't lose your mind or your sleep holding it. And I think what you're talking about is this, your dad was interacting with the stock.
Mm-hmm.
How is it going to trade? Is it going to be liquid? Who are the buyers? And he was probably looking for activity in it. So he doesn't want a stock that people buy and put it away in a shoebox and forget. They want a stock that, and Microsoft was a very exciting stock too.
Yeah, yeah.
Talked about and interact with for years to come. I think it still is a recommendation of any kind. But at any point, it's that distinction between the stock and the business. We all say, I want to own a certain business, but you do end up holding a stock, and that stock may upset you to the point that you're going to sell it, no matter how good the business is.
Well, now you're talking about the psychology of trading, which there's nothing new under the sun there. I don't care what company you're trading, right?
Yeah. As
we can see, it doesn't matter what security, index, currency, or anything that you're trading. It all becomes the same. Bitcoin kind of proves that. I feel like it's not a stock. But at this point, we've seen its episodes. The volatility is insane. That would be sort of the model of the least perfect stock.
Yeah.
I feel like even though it's in a clean uptrend, it's still too volatile to be. And gold, but conversely, when you were saying that, I was like, yeah, that's why I hold gold. You know what I mean? Like gold is cool to hold. Gold goes up and then holds its value and then goes up further, and holds its value and then goes up further. And the drawdowns are tiny, and you're like, over time, you're like, man, this is what they talk about when they say money goes where it's treated best. Like this feels good. This is right. And so that's the personification of it.
Well, so let me ask you about a certain investor's dilemma that I have. And I'm also writing a piece about it. As you can tell, whenever I have something on my mind, I just write it out and I see how people react to it.
Same, yeah.
But the dilemma is, so as Matt told you, I buy things and I hold them. And when I say I hold them, I can hold things for 5 or 10 years. I was just going over a little bit of tax selling this time of the year, and
that was Tony's heart trying to jump out of his chest. The idea,
yeah, right.
5 to 10 years. It's like, oh.
Did you say minutes? Sorry.
Well, you'll see why. But I have a dilemma because I find something that I find interesting. It meets my criteria, certain qualities that we can talk more about. And I like to buy when people panic. I like to have it half off at least, but not half off in the sense that I buy 50-cent dollars. I can pay $1.50 if I see $100 bill in front of me over the long run. So that's how I look at it. So I never bought a stock at an all-time high. I don't recall. But I bought a lot of stocks at close to an all-time or a recent low. I buy it, I hold it 5 years, it's done very well. The next 5 years, some of them actually reinvented themselves. So I keep on holding. And there's always a time for most of those stocks, almost always, that they get overheated. Like people just can't stop talking about it. When I bought it, nobody wanted to bring it up. I wouldn't be invited to idea lunches if I brought it up. But now everybody wants to talk about that stock, whichever stock it is. And I have a handful that happen to be in the most desirable stocks these days, but they were not when I bought them. And I have a dilemma because if I sell it just because too many people like it and it gets overheated, I don't have a good practice when to go back. I think it's very hard to go back. Do I go back when it sells off by 10%, by 20%? It may never sell off more than 20%. And I think a lot of money, at least from my perspective in the long-term holding business, gets lost when people sell a stock because the multiple went up. It's not a reason, but I know a lot of people that say, I can't hold it. It's trading at this much. And anyways, it's my dilemma because right now in my portfolio, I have a few stocks that clearly are not a bargain, but just selling them because they're overpriced, overheated. Where do I go? Like, do I sit on cash, buy that gold that you've been pitching?
Value investor therapy. Tony, break the psychology down to this here. This is interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing that all of the people that I talk to in terms of, coaching with portfolio management and risk management and things like that, the number one fear, the number one problem that literally everyone has is figuring out when to part with something.
Yeah.
And how they're going to feel once they're down to no position.
Yeah.
And I'm so transactional, Bogey, perhaps to a fault, and I understand that, but it's always been the way that I've either thrived or survived. Yeah. And so I'm okay with that, living with those conditions. But I think about people's psychology, and because I'm so wired so differently, I can't understand it. Like I talked to a guy today, for example, on my platform where I advise people, and he's saying, I've been in this uranium trade a long time, and there's been a lot of drawdowns, and I'm like, well, have you traded it all around it? And he's like, no, I don't sell anything. Like I can't sell any of the position, and I'm like, why not? And he's like, well, because I won't be able to buy it back. And I'm like, was the market going to close after you sell it? I don't understand. The market's still open. You can buy it back 5 seconds later. Like, what do you mean? You don't know how you're going to buy it? What kind of emotional support do you need to help to buy the goddamn offer is going to be on the screen tomorrow morning? What's the matter? But people think that because they own something and they get this attachment to it, especially if it performs, it becomes like their best girlfriend. And they can't say, okay, that's it. They can't find the time to part with it. And I'm okay. I'm just after the money, right? So I'm just after the P&L. So once I get some, and if it's to a point where I'm happy, I have no problem selling things and not looking back and looking for the next thing, So I have a totally, and I believe more and more in your sort of angle as I get older, where I want to have, a little bit of a slower moving portfolio. I want to have, longer term holdings and a little bit less volatility and things like that. So I'm not trying to poo-poo the idea of getting rich slow. I think it's the best idea, quite honestly. So if there's some balance in there.
I think there's 1,000 ways to make money, and Matt knows that I've had 200 guests on Talking Billions, and if anything I learned through the process is that there are more ways to make money than I could have ever imagined. Yeah. And I'm not here to judge and say, this is, if you find a way that works for you, I think that's at the end of the day what I tell people. If you found a way that allows you to accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish, do that. And if you have clients, then make sure that they're on the same page. I'll mention one anecdote, one story, a personal experience that rhymes a little bit with what you do daily and what I did maybe once or twice in my life. And maybe it will shed more light on the phenomenon. But early on in my career, I had less capital to invest, as many do, and options looked attractive because you put down less money and you can get a lot more upside. And no endorsement of any kind. Do your own research. I think they can be very risky animals if you don't know what you're doing. But anyways, I was doing it only on the long side, and I would find some situations where I felt that the market overreacted. Me buying shares and waiting for things to turn around was not enough. Like I thought, I'm going to take this mental experiment and I'm going to use options in those moments. Markets overreact and they come back quicker than we think. So I was buying very, very small amounts looking back, but meaningful to me at the time. Like it could pay for a trip to Italy, kind of, not a life-changing amount of money, but if it works out, that's a trip. So anyway, speaking of Italy, I bought options on one company. I'm not going to say which one it was. Massive missed, earnings, stocks sold off 20%, 25%. So I bought a few days after some calls on it, and I actually went on a trip to Italy. And it was just the timing. I didn't really plan it well. Anyways, I was losing my sleep over where those options are on the trip. And that was almost 20 years ago. I'm on a train in Italy to Florence. Those things you don't forget. And I see a guy reading Wall Street Journal. And I said, "Do you mind if I grab your copy for a second?" It was before we could look up things easily online. Internet sucked. It wasn't that easy to do it. Anyways, I looked on the back pages and I see, and it looks like the stock actually went up since, and I'm thinking these options are still fine. I can continue my trip. I got back home. I sold those things. They paid back for the trip I was on. But I learned a lesson that's not for my stomach, and I haven't done it since. So I haven't owned options since that experience. But it taught me something, and I think we all have to learn something about ourselves as much as we learn things about something. We learn things about ourselves, and I learned something about myself. I'd rather hold a portfolio of stocks that I can go on that trip. And I sail and I scuba dive. I'm on boats and I'm stuck on boats. I see a little sailboat on the window that they're behind you. I'm curious about the story behind it. But anyways, I'm stuck sometimes without any access for a while. I can't hold options.
Options, I couldn't agree more. We have had similar experiences. I advise all of my customers when they start talking about options in my Slack channel and they say, "Hey, what about this? What about this?" I always say, price up whatever option you want. And then before you buy it, slam your hand in the drawer instead. I'd be willing to bet that you have a better experience than buying the option. I really do, because I remember, like you, Bo, I had, my experience was trading options, I guess, on gold when I was trading that book at Goldman Sachs and deciding that I wanted to, start experimenting with this. I had some views on the direction and I thought it was going to go up. So I bought some calls. And gold went up like 20, back then $25, whatever, across a weekend, just an average move, but it was a move. And this is a $350, $400 item at the time. But I had it right, and we came in on Monday, and I was down money. And I was like, what are you talking about? I have calls. We got closer to my strike price, and the option deal is like, yeah, vol collapsed. And you're like, oh.
Tony met the Greeks.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Without
like
the vacation.
Three-card Monty of the Greeks. Exactly. Thank you very much. And from then on, I was like, this game, I'm not smart enough. They're playing 5D chess over there, and I'm over here playing checkers like an idiot, and I can't do that. So I stick to checkers, and it works out.
Can I add another dimension to it? So Matt mentioned that my firm is called Blue Infinitas. I like the word infinity, open-ended. And the families I work with, I manage money for families, multi-generational wealth, very patient people. And I aspire to be as patient as they are. But open-ended. The question I ask myself is, how much time do I have to be right? I remember that I didn't really like the traditional education, and I don't know what yours was like, but the tests and the exams, you have only 45 minutes to solve a problem. To this day, I feel like there's a small deposit of a certain pain that I have around math problems when I was a teenager. And they would say, here's the equation, and you have to find a solution in 45 minutes, whatever. And there's no points for trying. Like there's no points for trying. Like no points. Like you either have the solution or you don't. And I thought I can find a solution. If you tell me I can come back tomorrow, I can come back next week. I know I could find a solution. And most of life, I realized after I left school, is problems of that kind. You know, you put a problem in front of me, and I tell you how much time do I have to be right on that topic, right? And then if you tell me, if the problem is to become the richest person in town, and you tell me do it by the end of the week, it's a very different ask than do it over your lifetime, right? First of all, I want to live the longest life possible.
Yeah, exactly.
And frame it in a completely different way.
Time is powerful when you can figure out how to use it on your side, right?
Yeah.
In a couple of different ways. For me, like I always teach people that, like as a trader, time and patience are, you know, two of your most lethal weapons against the markets. You know, and that entails, you know, being flat a lot and just sitting here with a pile of capital waiting to see what develops, you know. And so from that position, from clear thinking, you can go ahead and get into a situation and trade. But it comes from sitting there for days and being patient and waiting for your price and things. I get bullish of security and I put it on my radar screen. And everybody comes to me and says, oh, when are we buying this? When are we buying this? And I say, okay, when it gets to a price that I want to buy it. It's too expensive now. Let's wait. Markets rally and they dip. Let's wait for a dip. Why am I going to go chase into this? Does it matter that I got the idea last night? Could that have anything to do with that also being a time to buy? Mm-hmm. Nothing, right? So let's wait for a time to buy. I got it on my pad and I'm going to watch. So that's something that never ceases to, using time in all different ways. It's just really, really important. And the get rich slow thing is, man, have you listened to any Tony Dayton commentary? Yeah. Yes. That's his wheelhouse, and he's better at enunciating it, I think, than anyone.
Well, Tony's a good friend and a mentor, and he actually wrote a forward to my book. So Tony's
my God.
A dear friend, yes.
Oh, that's so cool to hear. He's like one of my heroes. So it's like just hero worship at this point. I just like the way that he looks at the world, and I've absorbed a lot of it. I love the idea that I love his commentary about the only two times that a price matters is the day you buy and the day you sell.
Yeah.
You know, because there's something about that, about knowing the value of something that you own and being okay with the market not valuing it as much because you know what potential it has, you know. And if you can get yourself into that kind of an investment, then you're on your toes. Then you can play some offense.
Tony has this anecdote about an owner, a founding family of some business that he happened to own, and that owner is walking with him. They're talking, and the owner is asking him, where does the stock trade these days? His own stock of his own company. And to me, it's such a telling moment where you are a business owner. In most privately held businesses, you don't actually know the price of your business. You know, you own a gas station. Matt and I talked about gas stations a couple of times. You have no idea how much that gas station should sell for. You know, all you know is the receipts and how much it costs to run this thing, and are the employees happy, and many other things you worry about. But you don't walk around and say, I have a $2 million gas station. How's your day? I have a $2 million gas station. That's not how you live your life. You have a gas station in the right corner in the right town. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
I want to double click into this idea a little bit more, because I want to talk about each of your businesses and get you talking about not for what they're worth, but just it's interesting what the businesses themselves are, and for the angles. We'll get to that part. But like Tony, like tell Bogumil a little bit about what is TG Macro, what is the actual business that you run that's not just the trading stuff, because they're related.
Yeah. Knock on wood. You know, 9 years into it, in November, I just launched my 9th volume of the newsletter professionally. So it was, it's cool that we're zeroing in on a decade of the business. And what I kind of set out to do when I started was going along with the idea of the democratization of Wall Street information, with, you know, as the internet grew and Twitter grew and this and that, FinTwit grew. You know, I saw a place where we were working at banks and buy side shops, but like all the information exchange was happening online all of a sudden, and a lot of it was information that was only transpiring over trading desks in the past. And now all of a sudden, once I saw that opened up to the world, I was like, okay, there's a total opportunity here for independent analysts. I just watched Jared Dillian grow a newsletter from zero to hero right in front of me, and he writes about cats a lot.
And they're psychics. Don't leave them out.
And they're psychics, exactly the whole thing. And I love that. And I don't miss a dirt nap. And so I guess because I had there was seeing that opportunity and having the experience of coming up as a trader and getting to read Dennis Gartman was quite honestly like a real deal thing. Maybe I'm having deja vu, but I think I told Matthew that when I was at Goldman, it used to come over the fax machine, and at first I was the junior in charge of making 20 copies of it and handing it out to everybody that wanted to read it. But it was so helpful to just have somebody show up in the morning like a DJ, and I'm a radio guy and a talk show host guy. But it was really interesting to have somebody show up and say, all right, this is what I got. Right? I'm looking at the world like this. This is what I see. These are my opinions. These are my positions. Do with it what you want. I'm just making you think about what you're doing, right? And I was like, man, like if all of these guys, all these prop traders at Goldman Sachs are ripping each other's arms off for this thing, there's value to that, right? And there's the small picture of having the individual value of appealing to traders and offering opinions and bringing information to the markets. And then there's the regularity of repetition for traders, which whenever you appeal to that, you can win. And so I was like, okay, I feel like I can compete in this arena. So to get to the point, I started writing the newsletter and tried out a couple of different products. Along the way, I would say what I was trying to do was build a sales funnel along the way to creating a little bit of a community. And I said community online on a call like this with my friend Jawad Mian, who is also an independent analyst. And he goes, TG, you have to have a Slack channel. And so I guess probably 4 or 5 years ago, I started a Slack channel so that people could have access to me whenever they wanted. And I was like, oh, I like this. Let's create a trading desk type of atmosphere where I'm kind of the head of the trading desk. I talk about everything that's going on in the markets real time, offer opinions and put some charts in. And maybe these people will participate in this community with me. And I learned that, 150 members of that later, that they will. So from there, it got to my final product, which is called the Sailor's Deck, but it's basically one-on-one trade coaching, risk management type of time slots. Right, so I meet with them once a month, and we go over anything from tactical trading to, literally risk management, idea generation, things like that. And it's just kind of catering to whatever the draw of that client is. But it's when a client is they go from hitting you up in direct message constantly in the Slack channel to me creating the need for another product where we have specific conversations with that subscriber on a regular basis and kind of try to enlighten them that way. So those are the 3 verticals of my products. And then, the sales funnel that we built around it most successfully just a year and a half ago is the podcast with Jared Dillian that we've done 76 weeks in a row that I'm extremely proud of and has been really, really good for the business overall. And so that's what my business looks like now. It's really kind of selling all 3 of those products, loving life, writing the newsletter and composing it every day. And, that was always, freedom was always the goal from the days on the street of when you kind of figure out how to make money, et cetera, et cetera. You're like, okay, I want to be able to do this and not have to be here 14 hours a day. So, you go through a couple of iterations of your career and you're like, okay, there's an opportunity. You're going to have to take a couple pay cuts to get there, but I'm okay with that. And I've enjoyed the journey. So that's the whole story. And I want to give up the floor because my mouth is getting dry. I'm talking for too long.
Cheers to dry mouth. Bogumil, I'm giving you a chance. I mean, you got to have a question or two.
I like the time and freedom. I like that. I think it translates across the board. And, a lot of the guests on my podcast, if they have something in common, is that they figured out a way to do what they love in a framework that works for them, but it doesn't mean that they work night and day. And you said something about sharing a paycheck. I think it's both scary and empowering to know that you are directly in charge of your own paycheck. I think it's a realization that's, some of us have at some point, or even within a corporate setting where you actually are in charge of how much you're going to get paid. Not if you're liked, not if you're popular, not if you cheered the right person at the birthday party or whatever.
Oh,
It's
so great. You can't bullshit the bottom line, right?
no, there's
That is
something
brilliant.
refreshing about that. And I mean, bigger truth there. But anyways, going back in time, if I can for 1 second, when I think about childhood, and I ask my guests about childhood and upbringing, the topics, the subjects that I liked at school were the ones where you couldn't bullshit. And I liked math because I felt like if the answer is 4, if I'm teacher's favorite, or if I'm the most hated by the teacher, the answer is 4. If I get to 4, I get an A, right? And then other topics, I felt like, my teacher liked the essay or didn't like the essay, and many other, more creative outcomes that I love doing, but I felt that I have no control, and I still do. I love it, but I had no control over the grade, which is something that's very, tricky in the school setting, but I'm sure also in the career setting where you don't have the control over the, how are you going to be graded?
Outcomes are very, very difficult to gauge, right? There's the study, there's the process, there's the goal setting, there's the journey, and then there's the outcome. And when I dig deeply into all of those parts of the process, as I get older, the part I care less about is the outcome.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that we're not trying to accomplish things, right? Like we're trying to accomplish our goals. But when you look back at all of the learning and experiencing and, lightning in a bottle experiences that you have along the way, and then you say, shit, I might have gotten whatever, call it a bronze medal here, or a 4th place stinker ribbon or whatever, like, okay, could have been worse, but now let's look at what we accomplished on the way here, right? We did this. We learned that we're not going to do this anymore. We learned that we want to go down this angle, and we learned, so that part is, I know what you mean. I'm hard on myself about failures too, and I've had somebody open up my mind about it a little bit, and I guess that's helped quite a bit. That the enjoying the journey is I guess maybe the cliff notes of it, or benefiting from the journey, maybe is an even better way. If you force yourself, that's where the beauty and all the love and the grit and the that's where all that is.
I have to say something. I'm listening to you and I'm thinking of, have you heard of the book Obliquity by John Kay? Obliquity is the idea of indirectly accomplishing a goal. And in many situations in life, we go directly after it, maximize the profit, or whatever it is. In corporate settings, it's usually the profit. But then you realize that you can accomplish more in terms of the profit if you treat the customer better, if you let them feel that they received more value than they paid, if you remember their name, if you send them a discount around their birthday, whatever it is, but they feel special and unique. On top of it, you provide a product that you would be proud of. It's a relationship, not a transaction, and on and on and on. And the profit follows. And I think that book, if you ever read it, you can't see the world the same way. And in the investment profession, or if you have customers, clients, you start to see the world in a different way, not thinking, oh, I'm going to maximize my profit per customer, per click, per engagement. But instead of it, you turn it, well, if this is somebody that will buy my newsletter, in your case, time and time again over the next decade, that's where the real value for me is. How do I do that? How do I show that I provided so much useful information that they want to sign up and be a part of my journey? At the end of the day, when you think about it, the cost acquisition collapses because you spend time only once. I mean, if you want to be very cynical about it, but the truth, it is so much more enjoyable. I think about my clients, and I have a handful of families that I work with. I look forward to every single call from them. Yeah. And it doesn't show up on the balance sheet, it doesn't show up on the income statement, but to me it means something, that the people that I I choose to work with and that choose to work with me, I'm looking forward to a phone call from them.
There's a lot of wisdom in there too, Bogumil, because now you're putting the connection into the profession,
Yeah.
right? And when you add the human connection into that, that's where all the real reward is, and it's who you meet along the way and how they change your life a little bit or just became a friend or something like that. But I loved I think kind of a little bit of what you were enunciating in my kind of parlance is like, just show up and do the work.
Yeah.
Like not everybody's going to love it every day. It's not going to be perfect every day. But if you're putting your heart and soul into what you're doing and you believe in it, it will show through and eventually people will buy it and you'll have a product. And that was something that I really learned recently by hiring a new manager to work with me that's very salesy and very good. I'm a trader and I am not a sales guy. They are two different things on Wall Street. I'm sure you know that, right? Like, and so because I don't have that and he does, he looks at my business like a gold mine waiting to happen.
Yeah.
He's like, what are you talking about? You have a product that people pay $800 a year with a smile for, some of them 9 years in a row now. All we got to do is get the word out and sell this thing and we're going to make tons of money. And, he's like, you just keep showing up and making the newsletter, and I'm like, there's a good back and forth to that. I like that. That's totally fair. So.
Yeah.
All right. So now, well, actually, Bogumil, Tony, do you feel like you understand what our friend Bogey here is doing? Do you feel like you kind of understand? You got questions.
Yeah. I want to know more granularly what you do, but, and what your firm is about. Go ahead, Dave. Tell me a little bit more.
So in the simplest way, the way I look at it is, I have two sides to it. One, I have the clients. On the other hand, their capital is invested in a handful of stocks. So I have no middleman on either side. And I like it because if I want to talk to the client, I know the name, I know the family, I know the kids, I knew the grandfather. I know what they're about, and I spend a lot of time with them, and those are long-term relationships. And the new ones that I'm building are meant to fit the bill as well. So I take a long time to onboard a client. I'm building a relationship. They're almost like moving into my life, and I'm moving into theirs in some way. And the topics we'll talk about might be topics that they don't really have a chance to talk to anybody else about. They're very, money is a very intimate, emotional topic for people, if you really take it seriously. And on the other side, I know all the 30-some stocks that I hold, and many of them I've held for a long time. I feel like I'm an owner of those businesses in my own name and in the name of my clients. So I don't have to call a asset allocator that calls a fund manager, that calls an analyst, that calls a junior analyst that actually looked at the company. I looked at the company. And obviously it limits me in some way, but it also puts on a certain discipline. And if things happen like April this year, Liberation Day, or March 2020, I know what I want to buy. I know what price I'm willing to pay, and I can act very quickly in those moments. And then the rest of the time, I usually just wait. It's like planting a tree and waiting for it to grow. So that's the balance between the two sides. The clients have to be of a certain mindset, and the money that is invested. Jim O'Shaughnessy asked me, what kind of money do you want to invest? And I said, forgotten money. And he laughed, and I said, well, I really mean it. The kind of money I want to manage is that portion of somebody's net worth that's not part of the daily equation, paying bills or even renovating the kitchen. It's the money that can be really deployed over 5, 10, 15, 20 years or longer. So it's the money for your kids or grandkids or for you later on in your life. When you extend that time horizon, in my mind, even your immediate decisions, the quality of those decisions goes up. So it's not that you have to wait so long for the outcomes. You can cancel out so much noise in my world that you can focus on a handful of things that really matter, plant a couple of seeds, and let them grow. It might be 30 stocks, but after a decade, a handful of stocks will pull all the weight. That's the reality, right? And it's the Chris Mayer that we brought up on this show, 100 Beggar idea. I mean, we all aspire to find a 100 bagger, but if you find a stock that's up 10 or 20 times and you bought even a decent sized position after a decade, don't be surprised if it's 15% of the account. It's up to you to decide what you're going to do about it. But that's the nature of this business. And go ahead.
No, I wanted to ask you: are you catering to family offices, just individuals? Are you like, I'm trying to fit you into, I guess, a box.
Which box? Which box are you?
That's what I mean. Is it family office consultant? Is it your own wealth manager? Are you a family office for family offices? Like, I'm trying to figure out, is it just exclusive bespoke wealth manager? How would you characterize it?
It's a boutique investment firm, and
that's fair.
It's funny how the concept of a family office comes up in many conversations. I interact with the individuals. There is no office. So I interact with the family. I know the actual family, and they make the decisions. They are involved. They are aware, because the family office creates another middleman to the setup. And maybe it works for some families. I mean, some families are so large and so many members, and I've met families that have, 1,000 family members and distant relatives that are all part of one. It's a whole different governance question, and I'm fascinated with it, but it's not where I operate. I operate with families where I know the decision makers, I know the beneficiaries, I know whose life I'm impacting directly. And maybe it's a small sliver of the universe, but it's the sliver of the universe that I feel that I can make the biggest difference.
It's a beautiful place to be situated in the world of finance, that's for sure. I touch a lot of individual traders and a lot of guys that are trading money that would otherwise go towards the rent or the dinner bill.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of guys that subscribe to my note, and if I put on a trade and it goes wrong, they unsubscribe. You know what I mean? And you're just like, this guy's missing the point. I mean, whatever, but you know what I mean? Like, the value to reading my work is kind of staying with me over time as we develop themes and figure out how to get, like I always say when people ask me what my time frame is, it's like 2 minutes to 2 years, man. Like, I don't know. It's depending on what's going on in the markets, how well I get in, how I'm able to manage the risk along the way, what the security does, right? There's a lot of factors. But
what would be your dream client, a dream reader of your newsletter?
I have a lot of dream clients, man. I really have to say that I have a lot of dream clients. They're the people that have faith in me, and that are my dream clients are the people that have taken me up on my calls, made money on them, and decided that they're with me for life because that experience was exactly what they were looking for. And I knew that when I started this business coming from Wall Street, where, you're kind of thrown on a team with a lot of teammates that you didn't pick and maybe wouldn't want to work with and this and that. I knew that I was going to be, trading that and getting away from that into a world of all these individuals that I was going to have to get to know at some level, and I knew it was going to have to be one subscriber at a time. To win people over, like you said, with that personal touch that makes them feel good, and maybe it takes me a little bit longer to figure that out than other people, but I think that part of it has been really cool because the people that I've met along the way have been spectacular, and you can choose how to orient yourself towards people, right? The people that are good to you are like, oh, these are colleagues that I would love to have. We have a great rapport back and forth, and then you've got the people that are literally nagging you about things that you've written about and calling you out on shit and this and that. And you're like, I don't really owe you an explanation for all this. Like, if this is what you're subscribing to me for, then this isn't going to work for me. And so I'm not going to give you many answers, and you're going to be gone before we both know it. And that's fine. So I'm kind of okay with that too. Kind of, the old no assholes rule still applies, and so while I have a large number of clients, in terms of, approaching 1,000 subscribers to the newsletter, 100 and change people in the Slack channel that I talk to every day, it's managing a lot of personalities, but it's a really, I would say it's an enjoyable part of the business and not a drag, because most people are in it to be students of the market with you and hear input from all other people, and they're in it for the community. And that's where I win. That's where it works out great for bringing them all together.
So let me frame something. I'm curious how it rhymes in your world, because in my world, now and then over the years, I've been doing this for 20 some years now. People have those idea lunches, and in New York, people love that. They invite you to dinner or lunch and just bring an idea. And I used to go because usually somebody pays for that lunch. So why wouldn't you go? And you meet some interesting people, you learn new things. But I always had a challenge with that. And, let's bring up Tony Deedon for a second again, because Tony gets asked to bring a stock, and he would say it's like asking a doctor what's a good medicine to take these days. And I grew up in a household with two doctors, physicians, and I know the answer. Like, well, tell me what's wrong. Like that's the first question, and maybe we can figure out what you would need. But if you say, can you just give like a blanket recommendation of a medication? It doesn't work that way. And with stocks, it's kind of the same way. So I say yes to those requests once in a blue moon if it's a good friend. And I have to tell you that it's almost like a kiss of death to that idea. And I don't know why. And maybe there's some. So I look at the portfolio, and I have stocks that I've held for 15 years. Why would I bring it to the idea, dinner, lunch, whatever?
Yeah,
I wouldn't, because they are no longer, well, they will still perform fine in my mind. That's why I have them, but they're not the material for the conversation. So I bring up something that I recently bought, and my record is that when I buy something in the first period, many of those stocks actually go down, because I buy stocks that are half off or 30-40% off. Something
so
is
under pressure.
Yeah, they're under pressure.
Yeah.
So when I go and recommend, I must be the most disappointing presenter at those things, because those ideas don't do well. And I think putting them out to the audience and adds to this kind of kiss of death experience, where I kind of can bet that just because I brought them up, it's the fairy dust is off the of the idea, and I shouldn't. Anyways, do you have some thoughts about it?
The idea lunch thing rhymes with. The idea lunch to me rhymes with writing end of year predictions as an analyst, a little bit, right? It's kind of taking you out of your groove and jamming you into a little square cube that's 2 feet by 2 feet and saying, okay, do something smart now. Let's see a cool trick, and you're like, oh man, like, I don't really know. This isn't really my bread and butter. But I guess, things are different for me because I sell the process more than the idea. So I can't say that I have a one-to-one metaphor, but what I've done with, I guess, my view matrix, which is kind of running a live P&L for my subscribers, is make everything very systematic, right? Like the trades that I look at and get us into are all very much the same, where we are buying pullbacks in bull markets of some form. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the animal that I hunt and am good at killing. So it's more kind of finding that pattern recognition and the sectors that are doing that and what's causing that to go on in all these sectors. So I know what you mean, whereby, like, as soon as somebody takes you out of, whatever way you're used to making money and says, let's see you do this trick. It's like, it's like asking me to do like a somersault or something like that. I can't do that. It's like I sit here and I do what I do. Like, I sit here all day long and I watch the market tick for tick from bell to bell, and I let it tell me what's going on, and I jump on board. It's not really much more than that. So when I make it systematic as I can, I guess I take a lot of the emotion out of it and say, look, with the risk reward lined up here, just like it did the last 100 times. Like, I wouldn't do it any differently, so I guess that's where it's different. But I do know what you mean, man. Sticking your neck out as soon as you're out of your jujitsu, it's hard. It's hard.
All right, I'm flipping you up one more level on the businesses now.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, and we've already scratched a lot of the surface, TG, with like the community that you have around what you're doing. But you're both out there doing podcasts, community speaking, all these other things. And this is where I want to compare some notes between the two of you on this. And maybe TG's already told us a little bit about, like, he does Macro Dirt with Jared Dillian. He's got the broader subscriber community. Bogumil, maybe tell him just for a second tell him about your show. Tell him about Talking Billions, how long you've been doing it, the approach to the community there, because it's a different type of, dare I say, top of funnel activity, but it serves a broader purpose too. Tell them about the show.
Yeah.
So the show started 3 years ago, and it was meant to be 6 conversations with people that had an impact on me. And it was, still COVID or later COVID, and I was on Zoom a lot with people that I have respect for, with a lot of friends. And I thought some of those conversations need to be recorded. Take away the individual stock names, take away some of the private things, but the essence, I thought, it has to be captured. So that was the idea, and it became this open-ended, infinite, yet again, 200 episode, 3-year project of sitting down and talking to people that I knew, people that I was introduced to by wonderful humans like Matt himself. And it became this ecosystem in a way that I don't even have to think about who am I going to talk to next month, because every single week there's a person or two that makes their way to me, and I'm excited to talk to them. And some of them I know, some of them I'm getting to know, some of them I've read every book they've ever written, some of them I'm just discovering, and it's just a permission to learn. But Matt knows that there's an element to it that I think all three of us would agree on, that I haven't fully captured at the beginning, or maybe appreciated enough, is that around something that you do of that nature that's public, a community will grow. People that want to show up every week and listen to you and your guests. And I've been blown away by the number of people that decided to spend time with me and my guests every week. Not only that, but they took the time to write to me and share their very intimate life stories, investing experience, challenges, questions, dilemmas. And it's been a wonderful, the episodes are kind of the tip of the iceberg, but everything else that happens in between, the emails, the Zoom calls I have with many listeners, I think I've written 1,000 emails this year alone to all kinds of listeners from around the globe. And their emails are true, kind of from the heart essays. And it really enriched my way of seeing the world and investing and stories. And some of the stories that I heard once, I see how they rhyme across countries and cultures and experiences. It's just so fun to see. So I put all of it, obviously, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, but also on Substack. And Substack is where I put everything these days. Collaborations with Matt, but also essays that I write it used to be every week. Now it's every 2-3 weeks. My thoughts, and I brought up some of the topics that are on my mind these days. I just write, and then the minute you write it down, something magical happens, because it's such a discipline to actually write it down, and then how people interact with what you wrote. And I tell people, challenge what you wrote. This is just an opinion of one individual, but this is the way that I learn on the edges. And I feel like the blind spots keep on emerging, and I have a chance to find a way to shed more light on those blind spots that keep on appearing in my understanding of the world.
Yeah, so you've got great labs set up for learning, and that it's that community of the people that aren't afraid to reach out to you and kind of spill their guts a little bit, right?
Yeah.
That's the best. Like I get really excited when either a subscriber or a listener takes the time to write me like a 5-paragraph thing where you look at it and you're like, oh, okay, this is going to take a minute. I can't read this on the line here at Key Food. I'm going to have to wait till I get home. But it's where they always level up with the value that you're providing for them, and they're so appreciative, right? And it just gushes out of them. Sometimes they'll say, like, you've saved me so much money over the years. You've helped me keep my my bullish view so much longer than I ever would, blah, blah, blah. But that is the reward for doing the work.
Yes.
That is the ultimate, that's the payback that's better than, looking at your whatever monthly sales report. That's like getting that from somebody and know, like, Like the thing that I started to do when I set out to do it was help people make better trading decisions. Boom, here he is writing me a love letter about how good it went in the last year. But I'm just saying, like that's the non-monetary. It's a lot of value, even though that, and maybe it turns into monetary where they're a client for a long time, and you do other business deals because of it. But that's kind of secondary to the fact that you bonded over the way that you present your product. So your podcast, I'll start listening to to Talking Billions. I like the title, right? How'd you come up with the title? I like how you think big there, and you come right out of the gate with that.
It was a process, but my wife is in branding, and she worked for big brands, and she's helped many people come up with their stories and brands. So she is part of the Blue Infinitas Capital branding experience and Talking Billions. But the name was meant to be just talking about big things. Billions is such a powerful word that people have a reaction to, and I kind of like it, that it pushes buttons.
The game is about money, man, whether we like it or not. That doesn't make us bad people.
No.
So
billions is something good.
No, absolutely. You want to push that thing. And I'm curious, Tony, because when did you start officially doing, because your own podcasting stuff started late, but you were doing the Real Vision collaborations. You've done all these other things, exploring the format and kind of different communities adjacent to yours.
Yeah.
And that's different from Bogumil starting ground up. Maybe you could talk about that for a sec.
Yeah, I was always looking for I'm trying to think. There were always. Say, Matt, rephrase the question. Give me the lead again. And I had something in my brain, and I just brain farted.
It's okay.
It's about
the way that you came into it is different than the way Bogumil did, in my impression. I don't know this for sure, and I'm curious about this because I think it almost feels like you played around with figuring out other places you fit in, be it Real Vision or be it in other places, before you fell into this thing you've got going on, Macro Dirt with Jared now. And I'm just curious about what that exploration was. What'd you learn?
Yeah, so I was trying to figure out how to fit it together. And when you said Real Vision, I went off on like another mental tangent trying to remember something. But what I loved about when I decided, when I was like, okay, I'm done with the street here. My last experience was working at 3 shops in 3 years. And that is not the way that I'm wired, and not the way that I wanted to operate, and not the way I saw my career going, quite honestly. And I needed like a personal rescue package. And so I went to writing. I started blasting out the newsletter. And as I started writing the newsletter, Raoul Pal started Real Vision, right? And so this is a little bit tangential, but it tells a little bit more of the story. And so I wrote one of my podcasts, my navigators. I was like, here's another lookalike just like me that was just birthed, right? Real Vision is democratizing financial information the way I'm writing this newsletter and giving, Joe Sixpack a look at how a Wall Street experienced trader looks at the world. And so one of my clients that knew Raoul and had been already subscribed to Real Vision sends it to Raoul, and Raoul calls me up and he's like, get the fuck out of here. We got to have you come do some stuff for Real Vision. You work for Goldman as well, blah, blah, blah. We have all this overlap, all this, blah. So I just love the fact that he was like, he's like, the investment banks are not going to get all of these people attention. There's an entire market out there for us. And I was like, wow. I was like, how are we going to access all these people, and what are we going to create? He's like, I have no fucking idea. And I was like, good, me neither, but I know what you're talking about, So he's like, we're going to figure it out as we go. And that was the journey. He was like, all right, start with this. He's like, how about you just come on and do a video. We need video content. Give me a 15-minute, 20-minute trade idea. Talk me through it, And I was like, oh, man, on the spot, I'm usually like very reactive to things going, all right, let me come up with this idea, and got used to feeding feedback from those things, and getting used to like what worked and what didn't work, and what the audience size was like for this. And so there was a real, like, I guess, student of the market type of surfing that. And I was always curious. I'm like, okay, well, how many views do I get? Like, what's the result? Does anybody give a shit? Does anybody watch this? Is this worth me doing? And they were always very complimentary. Like, dude, people are eating this up. And you were like, really? And so, you're like, okay, how do I make it better? And that's when I started leaning into my, like, literally my love for talk show hosts and comedians and things like that, and saying, all right, this is where that overlap is. I think that if you can be the guy that can, friendly talk people through things and relate to them, everything is about relatable experiences. And if you can turn the markets into relatable experiences, people will pay to consume that. And I was like, okay, with that as the model, off we go. And I've tried a couple of things with different platforms, and it's really helped me kind of refine how I send my message, I guess. I read around and I read what other people write and stuff, and I kind of figure out where I think the lane is, if that's fair, and talk about things the way that other people aren't talking about them. And my product's a little bit different. I have like a goofy study break at the end, which is to appeal in the human being in every trader, because I knew if I was starting a business, I could relate to a lot of people. I didn't know necessarily that I could make them all money, because I can't like push the buttons for somebody else, but I could be their friend, and that's part of the business as well. Like you said, it's kind of the relationship side is really where a lot of the rewards are, and where, the meaningful part of your business starts to take a foothold, and you kind of lean on people to be there regularly, and therefore they're there for you regularly. And that's where the community starts. I think I took that full circle, Matt.
I think you did. And that's kind of what I was looking for. It was really interesting to hear that evolution.
Oh, good. Okay.
I made some notes. Can I take you guys through some notes for a second here?
Yeah. Honored, man. What do you got?
Bogey, starting with you. The story about his Tony's dad and getting Microsoft on his book. And I think my question is understanding that somebody like his dad, who's the trader, and like if you're the investor, you need the trader to help you, like, or the broker, the market maker, to get your allocation. But your expertise is not theirs and their expertise is not yours. How do you think about the complementary relationships to a guy who's like laughing about the new name on the new ticker on his pad? Like, you see these businesses, two totally different things, but the world's big enough that you both have businesses next to each other. Where's your brain go with that idea?
I have an idea.
Okay.
I wrote a piece earlier this year. I called it The Magic of Making Money While You Sleep. And and I'll explain how I thought about it. I was traveling in Southeast Asia at the time, and I was checking on things, and I realized it dawned on me one of the days that at the 12-hour difference, I sleep when most of the world that I know is working, and I'm catching up on a little bit of work when that world is sleeping. But it's not interfering with the kind of investments that I do, because I hold things over a long period of time. And Tony, you're going to lose your mind, but there are days like today that I haven't even checked the market. I don't know if it closed up or down. I have no idea. No idea. I have no idea how my stocks performed today. No idea. I had other things on my mind today, doing some deep research on 3 stocks that I'm considering, and I had a phone call with a client. I have no idea what happened with the market. It has no bearing on... I know you're going to lose your mind, but...
No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It really is. It's like, you're confident. I can tell that it's because, because of what you've chosen to have on versus the options. You can sleep like a baby, and you made those choices because you did the homework, and you did the homework because that's the world that you want to be in the world of preserving that wealth, and you figured out how, and now, if the market moved 5% today, it doesn't mean that you're dead or alive. It's like, okay, that's fine. I know what I own, why I own it. If it's getting cheaper, maybe I get to buy some more.
Can I offer another curveball?
Yeah,
throw another one.
In the same article, I quote a piece of research. I think
he's not going to tell us, Tony, that he was day trading through our conversation. He's not. It's like, I've been deep in the OTC markets while you've been talking. I haven't heard a word you said.
That's amazing.
Sorry, Bogumil. Go ahead.
You guys can look it up. But Bespoke Investment Group put out this study between 1993 and 2021, S&P 500. That's what they took on. And in that research, they looked at how stocks performed if you buy them at close and sell them at the next open. If you just bought and hold them, basically on the S&P 500, or if you bought at open and sell it close and go home without holding anything. And the first option, we buy it close, sell it the next open, I have the numbers in front of me, 853%. That's the return that you can look up the report. 853. Now, buy and hold, 627% of that period of time. And then if you buy it open and sell it close, it was a 10% loss if you did it repeatedly. Tony, what are your thoughts?
Oh, my God.
What are your thoughts?
Wow. I had literally, because I'm so deep in the markets, I have to think about that. That turned me on my absolute fucking head. Like I thought it was going to be Bogumil. I thought it was going to be like, I thought the return was going to be way, way more. Like it's like I thought, you know what it was? I kind of related it to that thing where if you were long the market on Fed days only,
I remember those studies too.
You outperformed the market for the year, every year for the last 10 years. You know, I thought it was one of those, but the fact that it's the inverse is so frightening to me.
They call it the overnight drift. And the study has been done for 22 of the 24 major markets, not just the S&P. So because people say, oh, this is just the American experience, it's apparently not, and there are other studies that show it. When you really look, and I just look at a handful of stocks that I pay attention to, and I look at when does the price action happen? And I think you would agree that these days, and maybe it's always been the case, that the movements happen after big announcements, which these days is mostly quarterly earnings, unless it's a takeover, I don't know, CEO getting fired, arrested, or somebody getting hired that everybody wanted to come in, then the stock reacts. But big news. But that news is announced after the market close. And I see it in my portfolio now. The stock's open the next day, up, hopefully up, but it's a big move sometimes because of the earnings or something. So when you really look at it, a lot of those moves happen in what they call the overnight drift. Yeah. So I could sleep during the day and be in Southeast Asia, not know what the market was doing all day.
This is your excuse to move to Southeast Asia.
Yeah. What a great call! You're like, I don't want to look at it. It's down during the day anyway. Over time, you know what I mean? Like it's not even worth looking at. That's unbelievable. That is really an unbelievable stat. I literally have to think more about that.
I need to look and I gotta sleep on that one.
Yeah, literally.
All right, TG, he brought up, and correct me, was the name of the book Obliquity?
Obliquity.
Yeah, I have a question. Obliquity, is that what was it called?
Yes, Obliquity. Obliquity.
By John Kay?
John Kay.
Okay. I need to read this book now, apparently, too. TG, you earn more by treating the customer better. I feel like there is a bajillion trading desk lessons on that quote alone. But, I mean, just the sentiment of earning more by treating the customer better, where does that hit you?
A little bit, I guess it rings to my years as a sales trader, where you were very much a player for every, I was very much in the mercenary side of the sales trading business. So I had big clients that I wore the jersey for. You know what I mean? Like I had several clients where I would cover 5 traders at this shop and 5 traders at this shop and 4 at this shop, right? And that's a lot of bodies and personalities to manage during the course of a day. But the science of getting through the day was managing that. You know what I mean? It was managing the blow-ups. It was managing the things that went right and managing everything in between. But it was the relationship that you had to develop with those guys so that every morning when you came in, they were looking for what you were providing value to them. Like every morning it was like, all right, what's TG got for us? And when you kind of, you feel like you're on that team, you're kind of being a selfless player of I never felt, since I was at Goldman, Goldman and Dolman Rose, I was at least like working for my firm on a team. And then as an independent and as a sales trader working at various different shops, kind of doing my own thing, I was just a mercenary, and I was working by myself and really not working with other members of the firm, but it was me versus the markets working for my customers. And the cool part about it was that, if you have a long-standing relationship, the most important thing was that some of my relationships were relationships from college, since before either of us are in the markets. And that was helpful because the guy had an inherent trust in you, right? A very different trust than if he met you. Hey, you got to sign to this account. You cover him, call up, introduce yourself, tell him, where you get to know each other, take him out to dinner, blah, blah, blah. And these are like long-standing relationships of guys that I've known for 20 and 30 years. So it was helpful when somebody was like, pick up the phone, listen to me. And that was like, dude, I need your help. And it was because you had that level of trust. You built a relationship with the guy. You took a couple of bullets for him here and there, protected his business, protected his anonymity, and then you were in the club. And you made that much more money, and they came to you that much more often. And, you got put in the box less often than other guys on your desk because you were making sure that at the end of the day, everything with that relationship, first professionally, was airtight. And then socially was like, hey, man, like send him a fart joke at the end of the day, too.
I got one more question before we play the game of trying to guess why I wanted to put you together. Bogumil, Tony brought up the idea, sell the process more than any one idea. I feel like that resonates with you, the selling of the process.
Yes, and for lack of a better word, process, but it's almost like a set of beliefs. When you onboard a client, somebody signing up to your newsletter, somebody decides to become my client. And I think the podcast is a chance for people to spend more time with all of us. I can't, when I do the math, and let's say the episode, somebody does 2,000 people listen to the episode, let's say, right, throughout the week that I release this Monday. There's not a chance in the world that I could sit down and have that kind of level of depth and, in intimate conversation with that many people in a week. Yeah. I can't. But they can have a participation in that conversation with me. And then if something resonates with them, they can follow up with an essay, with an email, with something, and connect and share ideas and be inspired. So I think on that level, it's a chance to see how I think. And when I bring in the guests, I tell them I'd like the audience at the end of this episode to think that they know Tony. They might not know everything about Tony. They don't know your high school teacher. They don't know your first pet's name. Probably you don't use these for your passwords, by the way. Right. But they know Tony. And I think that's what Matt does with his show. That's what I aspire to do, that people walk away after an hour and they feel like, I really know that guy, Matt. I'd love to have dinner with this guy.
Well, Matt is the master of sort of teasing out everyone's individual divinity. That's what I'm noticing.
That's beautifully put.
Everyone has their own sort of things that makes them special and that makes them tick, and Matt picks that up like a magnet more than any other people that I've met in the recent past. So that's where his superpower is, without a doubt.
Individual divinity. Wow. That sums it up. Yeah.
Divinity wasn't on my bingo card today. Yeah. I'll ask my wife later if it was on
I went to Catholic school, man.
I like it. I like this a lot.
Beautifully put.
Really
All right,
cool.
Tony, you're in the hot seat. You guess first. Why do you think I thought it was absolutely essential that I introduce you to Bogumil here?
Well, we're peers in the market, and we serve different layers. I'm sure that Bogumil serves a very sophisticated layer of finance and investing, and I serve, I won't say unsophisticated, but I serve the retail side a lot more, and then into wealth advisors and some traders and some portfolio managers and things like that. But I think that we both have our own process and are trying to help people in the world by kind of introducing them to it. I feel like that's our down the middle shared lane. Am I close?
I'm feeling good about the thing I wrote. I wrote this answer down like weeks ago at this point. So it's also extra fun here. Bogumil, what do you think? Why did I want to introduce you to Tony?
It's funny that you put it this way, Tony, because I wrote down we are here to be of service when I was listening to you. Like, we're all here to be of service, and it means different things to different people. We have different callings on this earth. And having talked to 200 people on Talking Billions, I realized if you found your calling, tell me about it. I'm not here to judge it or evaluate it or spin it in a different way. But you found your audience. You found the people that trust you. And I mean, if you have somebody that's been reading your newsletter for 9 years, think about it, right? Like you're a part of their life.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah.
That's a lot of life.
Yeah.
And there's a certain paradox because, you say that your attention goes, 2 minutes, 2 years. But you have somebody that you have their attention for a decade. Wow.
It's powerful. It's really powerful to me, And when you start, when you realize that you send out a note and there is literally a group of people that open it within 30 seconds of the time that it goes out, and it's the same group of people every day, you're like, man, I am blessed that people care about what I say that much, that they're clicking an email within a minute. Like, what? I'm doing something right, man.
You might have a teacher for a year, maybe two. You have your parents, different phases of life, and just that's a different type of relationship. So to build. All right. So the thing that I wrote down.
Bogumil's doing the same thing. He's getting people into positions and putting them on for 20 years, man. I mean, it's even better. It's even better.
It's a strange cousin at that point. That position. I wrote down investments in people pay off too. Just in different ways. I think you both embody that. I really, I am fascinated by how different two sort of investment themed communities you could have with different talking points, different audiences, but you just go out there and find the weird people who are your type of weird.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're all playing some version of this game. Right.
I want to say that, in moments like this, I get pushed outside of my comfort zone, and I appreciate, Matt, you doing this. And I have to tell you, Tony, that I learned a few things today that will stay with me. But one of them, the idea that you can go back and buy a stock because it's available the next day.
I'm going to go back just to
put it on a card,
your face when he said
put it on a card and hand it to any value investor that says, I can't buy it because I owned it. I can't buy it because I lost money in it. I can't buy it because I made money in it. It's a mental block. It's a mental, it's a limiting belief. The truth is Microsoft or whatever it is, it's available tomorrow. You sold it today. Okay. You can buy it back tomorrow. I think there's a lot to learn from it.
Yeah. You've inspired me too. And Matthew, this whole thing is to kind of put it together, both experience in talking to you and how you serve your clients, and the way Matthew frames it is that my takeaway is that I always have to step on the gas of creativity.
Yeah.
This is kind of the spark for it, and then I have to go back and ruminate on this and then listen to it again and figure out what I pull away from here that's going to become part of my DNA, because it's going to be something. I like the way that you look at things. You're patient about things, even though I have short time horizons. We both have a level of patience and respect for time. I thought that was a very interesting thread that just organically came out, and it's such a great trading thread. We could probably do a podcast on it alone, but I don't want to steal the floor. I think it's too just amazing connection, Matthew.
Well, this was fantastic. Like I said to both of you, I would have done this anyway. I was delated in my inbox when I realized I haven't made this connection. I was about to send it. I was about to you guys just have to know each other. Then I was like, wait. If they really haven't, I can turn them into content and use them, just like
amazing.
You know how it goes, guys. You know how
well
it goes.
Done. Well
Hey,
done.
Really well done, Matthew.
It's a
Bravo
ball.
to you.
Tony, people want to bug you on the internet. They want to sign up, check out the community, the newsletter, all these things. Where would you like to send them?
You can go to tgmacro.com. I have samples of the newsletter. There's a click to the conference I'm having in February. You can DM me on @tgmacro on Twitter. That covers it. And listen to the podcast, tgmacro@substack.com.
Beautiful. Make sure you check all those things out. It's wonderful insights, even if it's not your time frame. We're gonna get Bogumil on this list. I have a feeling. Bogumil, what about you? People want to look you up, bug you. Where do you want to send them?
My Substack. my first name, my last name, Bogumil Baranowski. I post everything in one place. You can find it other places, but that's where everything goes. The cool thing is that I grab a couple of emails of people that just signed up every week, and I write personal emails. No AI, no templates. I just write emails. And people are so surprised when they get an email from me. And it's such a fun experience for me. You know, I can't write too many, but if somebody gets an email, it's an email from me. So if you sign up, don't be surprised if I write to you.
Great personal touch, man. When people renew with me, I get an email for each one, and I randomly grab one every day and just say, and see who it is, how long have they been subscribing, and just say, hey, man, thank you so much for staying with me for this long. And some of the conversations that have sprung out of that have been unbelievable. People that read you for 5 years and never introduce themselves, and then you go back and say, hey, thanks for sticking with me, and next thing you know, you're talking about, like, whatever it is, important shit. You know what I mean?
Real
amazing
stuff.
Yeah.
But that's
It's
the
amazing.
value of community and being in their lives. Because even if you don't have the day-to-day interaction, the transactional relationship,
Yeah.
you're in
sizzle
that
is there.
fabric.
The sizzle is there, yeah.
The sizzle is there. This is Just Press Record. Like, subscribe, comment, all the things below. You're watching Cultish Creative YouTube. That's Tony Greer. That's Bogumil Baranowski, and we are out. Thanks for joining us. Like, comment, and hey, subscribe below to Cultish Creative on YouTube if you haven't already. As the good compliance people want me to remind you, Matt Ziegler, that's me, is a managing director at Sunpoint Investments. The opinions expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Sunpoint Investments. No information on this podcast should be construed as investment advice. Securities discussed in the podcast may be holdings of clients of Sunpoint Investments. I hope you've been entertained. I hope you found this useful. I hope you talk to a professional before you try any of this stuff at home. And most of all, I hope you've subscribed. Be nice to each other out there. And don't forget, head over to cultishcreative.com and let's make curiosity a habit together. And I'm out.